Welcome back to last video before bed. Today we'll be reading Reddit's terrifying alien encounters. Let's go. This was weeks ago. I was out in my backyard late at night, just stargazing and enjoying the peacefulness of the evening. The sky was particularly clear and I could see the Milky Way stretching across the heavens. As I was lying there, I noticed a strange light flickering in the corner of my yard. At first, I thought it was a firefly, but the light was too bright and didn't move like one. Curiosity got the best of me and I decided to check it out. When I got closer, I saw a small metallic object about the size of a soccer ball, hovering about a foot off the ground. It had a pulsating blue light and the surface looked almost like liquid mercury. I stood frozen for a moment, my heart racing. Then, without warning, the object emitted a soft hum and a beam of light shot down towards the grass. In that moment, I felt a rush of air and out of the light stepped a figure. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. It stood about 4 feet tall with an elongated head and large, expressive eyes that seemed to shift colors. Its skin shimmered with a strange iridescence, almost like oil on water. I expected to feel fear, but instead I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The being just stood there, observing me as if it were as curious about me as I was about it. Then it raised a slender arm and pointed toward the stars. I followed its gaze and saw a constellation I had never noticed before. Suddenly, images flashed in my mind, pictures of distant galaxies, alien landscapes, and even what seemed like a civilization thriving on another world. It was overwhelming but also beautiful. I felt connected to something much larger than myself, and for a moment all my worries vanished. After what felt like an eternity, the being slowly lowered its arm and made a soft, melodic sound. It was a soothing tone that resonated deep within me. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, it stepped back into the beam of light, which retracted into the object. The light flickered for a moment before the object shot up into the sky, disappearing among the stars. I stood there in silence, trying to process what had just happened. Part of me was convinced I had imagined it, but I know that feeling was too real. Okay, I know this sounds insane, but hear me out. I'm usually a pretty rational person, but this experience has me questioning everything. So, a few nights ago I was outside in my backyard just trying to clear my head after a rough week. The moon was full and I decided to do some stargazing, something I really enjoy. But then something caught my eye, this strange glowing light flickering in the trees at the edge of my yard. At first, I thought it was just a weird reflection or maybe a drone. But it didn't move like anything I've ever seen. I know it sounds nuts, but I felt this pull to go check it out. As I walked closer, I realized that the light wasn't just flickering. It was almost pulsating, like it was breathing. I swear I could feel it in my bones. My heart was racing, but curiosity got the better of me. When I reached the edge of the trees, I saw what looked like a small metallic craft, definitely not a drone. It was about the size of a compact car and had these strange symbols etched into its surface that seemed to glow in sync with the light. I was terrified but also fascinated. Suddenly, the air around me got heavy and I felt this intense pressure, like I was being watched. I looked up and saw 3 figures standing beside the craft. They were tall and thin, with skin that shimmered under the moonlight, almost like they were made of liquid. They had elongated heads and huge black eyes that seemed to pierce right through me. I wanted to run, but I was paralyzed with fear. Then one of them stepped forward and pointed an elongated finger at me. I swear I heard a voice in my head, something like a whisper, but it wasn't verbal. It was more like a feeling, a command: join us. I felt like my mind was being invaded. The images flashed in my head, dark places, cold spaces, and a sense of despair that made my stomach churn. I managed to break free from the trance and stumbled backward, falling into the bushes. The beings didn't move, they just stood there, staring. I yelled for help, but of course, it was the middle of the night and no one was around. I felt completely isolated. As I scrambled to get up, I noticed that the craft was now emitting a low hum, and the symbols were glowing brighter. I turned to run, but just before I could escape, I heard a loud crackling noise, like static electricity, and the world around me went dark. When I came to, I was back in my yard, but everything felt off. The grass was wet and I had a strange metallic taste in my mouth. I glanced at my phone. It was 3 a.m., but I felt like I had lost hours. I bolted inside, locked the door, and didn't sleep a wink that night. Ever since, I've been seeing shadows moving in my peripheral vision and hearing strange noises outside. I'm convinced they're watching me, waiting for me to let my guard down. I've even started finding weird marks on my skin, little circles that look like bruises but don't hurt at all. I know this sounds crazy and maybe I am losing it, but I can't shake this feeling of dread. I'm terrified that they're going to come back and I don't know what they want. Can anyone help me explain this? Or am I really losing my mind? Please tell me I'm not the only one who's had something like this happen. A few months ago, something terrifying happened to my best friend, and I can't shake the feeling that it's connected to the strange lights we saw one night. It all started when Jake and I decided to go camping at a spot we'd been to many times before. It's a secluded area in the woods, far from city lights, perfect for stargazing. The first night was great. We set up our tent, made a fire, and talked about everything under the stars. But then, on the second night, things got weird. Around midnight, we both noticed these bright lights in the sky. At first, we thought it was a plane or maybe a satellite, but they started moving in ways that didn't make sense. They zigzagged and changed colors, and we were both mesmerized. Jake suggested we go deeper into the woods to get a better view, and I thought it was a great idea. We walked for a while, following the lights as they danced above us, and I could feel this weird energy in the air, almost electric. It was exhilarating at first, but then that feeling shifted to something darker. As we reached a clearing, the lights suddenly intensified and converged into one blinding beam. I was about to say something to Jake, but when I turned to look at him, he was gone. Just vanished. I called out his name, but there was no response, only the sound of rustling leaves and my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Panic set in. I tried to retrace my steps, shouting for him, but it was like the woods had swallowed him whole. The lights continued to pulse in the sky, and I swear I felt like they were watching me. My gut told me to get back to the campsite, but I couldn't leave without Jake. After what felt like hours of searching, I finally made my way back to the tent, half expecting him to be waiting there. But it was empty. I spent the entire night by the fire, terrified and convinced I'd see him walking back any moment. But as dawn broke, there was still no sign of him. I finally decided to go for help. I hiked back to the nearest road and flagged down a car. When I got back with the search party, the whole area felt different, darker, as if the woods themselves were hiding something. We searched for hours, but no trace of Jake was ever found. It was like he had simply evaporated into thin air. Now it's been almost 3 weeks and I can't stop thinking about that night. I keep replaying it in my head and I feel guilty for letting him convince me to go toward those lights. I've even had nightmares where I see him calling out from the darkness, but I can't reach him. I've tried to report it to the authorities, but they think he might have wandered off and gotten lost. They don't understand. I know something is wrong. I keep hearing whispers in the wind, and sometimes at night I think I see the lights again, flickering just beyond the tree line. Has anyone else experienced something like this? I'm terrified that Jake is out there somewhere, maybe trapped or worse. I don't know what to do anymore. If you have any advice or if you've had a similar experience, please let me know. I just want my friend back. So, I know this sounds absolutely ridiculous, but I need to share my story because it's been haunting me ever since. I promise I'm not crazy, but I can't shake the feeling that what I experienced was real. I can still feel the chill of the night air and the rush of emotions that course through me, and I think about it every day. A few nights ago, I decided to go for a late-night walk in the woods behind my house. It's a familiar place to me, a sanctuary where I often escape to clear my head after a long day. But this time felt different. As soon as I stepped outside, I noticed the air was thick, almost electric, and there was an unusual stillness that made the hairs on my neck stand on end. It was as if the world around me had paused, holding its breath. As I wandered deeper into the trees, I suddenly noticed a strange glow coming from a clearing up ahead. The light was unlike anything I had ever seen, bright yet soft, pulsating like a heartbeat. Curiosity got the better of me, and I cautiously approached the source of the light, my heart pounding in my chest. As I stepped into the clearing, I was stunned. There, hovering just above the ground, was a figure that looked like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. It was tall, maybe around 6 feet, and its skin shimmered like polished silver under the moonlight. But what really caught my breath was its face. High cheekbones, full lips, and eyes that glowed an otherworldly shade of violet. Those eyes seemed to hold the cosmos within them, and I felt drawn into their depths. I know this sounds insane, but I found it incredibly attractive. It felt like I was staring at a cosmic model, a being that seemed to embody all the beauty of the universe. My heart raced and I stood there, completely frozen as it turned its gaze toward me. Instead of feeling fear, I felt this inexplicable pull, like it was drawing me in with an invisible thread. The alien stepped closer, and I could see it had long flowing hair that looked almost like it was made of starlight, cascading down its shoulders in shimmering waves. I remember how the moonlight caught the strands, making them sparkle like distant galaxies. It smiled, yes, it actually smiled at me, and I swear I felt a warmth wash over me, a sense of comfort and safety that I had never known before. I know what you're thinking, but I couldn't help it. I was entranced. Then it spoke. Not in words, but in thoughts, like I could hear its voice in my mind, clear as day. You are safe. I mean no harm. I felt a shiver go down my spine, not from fear but from something else entirely, something profound and mesmerizing. It was as if it understood me in ways I didn't even understand myself. I managed to stammer out a few words, asking where it came from and what it wanted, but the alien simply gestured toward the sky, where I could see a constellation I had never noticed before. Vibrant and alive. In that moment, I felt this overwhelming sense of connection, as if we were from the same universe, even if we came from very different worlds. It was a feeling of belonging that I had never experienced with anyone, human or otherwise. But then, just as quickly as it had approached, the alien stepped back and I felt that magnetic pull begin to fade. Panic set in as I realized it was going to leave. I reached out instinctively, wanting to touch its shimmering skin, to feel that warmth against my own, but it hesitated. I must go, it said in that hauntingly beautiful voice. But I will return. And just like that, it ascended into the air, the glow surrounding it pulsing in sync with my racing heart. I watched, breathless, as it disappeared into the night sky, leaving me standing in the clearing, completely dazed and overwhelmed by what had just happened. I felt like I had been touched by something divine, yet it left me with a profound sense of loss as it vanished into the darkness. Since that night, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. I feel like I've been cursed or blessed, I'm not sure which. I've tried to convince myself it was just a dream, but deep down I know it was real. The memory of its beauty lingers in my mind like a vivid dream that I can't shake off. I even went back to that clearing a few nights later, hoping to see it again, but nothing. Just the silence of the woods and the whisper of the wind through the trees. Each night since. It sounds crazy, but I swear it's true. I've never believed in aliens, but now I'm not so sure. It all started when I decided to take my dog out for a late-night bathroom break. The moon was full, illuminating my backyard with a silvery glow, and the night was unusually quiet. I stood there waiting for my dog to do his business, when I noticed a faint glow coming from the edge of the woods that border my property. At first I thought it was a trick of the light, but the glow grew brighter and pulsated rhythmically, drawing my attention. My curiosity piqued, I decided to take a closer look. I grabbed my flashlight, my dog following closely behind, and cautiously approached the edge of the woods. As I got closer, I felt a strange sensation wash over me, like static electricity in the air. It was unsettling but oddly exhilarating. Then I saw it. Emerging from the shadows was a figure that appeared to be a little over 6 feet tall, with glistening yellow skin that seemed to absorb and reflect the moonlight. Its body was slender and elongated, and it had long, spindly limbs that moved with an unnatural grace. The head was big and bulbous, with large oval eyes that shone like 2 bright yellow orbs, devoid of any visible pupils. It was both mesmerizing and terrifying. My heart raced as I stood frozen in place, unable to comprehend what I was witnessing. The creature took a step forward and I instinctively stepped back, nearly tripping over my dog. It didn't seem aggressive. Instead, it appeared to be curious. I felt a mix of fear and fascination as those brilliant yellow eyes locked onto mine, as if it could see right through me. "Are you real?" I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. The alien tilted its head as if considering my question. Then, to my shock, it spoke not with words, but with a series of melodic sounds that resonated in my mind. It was like music, flowing and harmonious, yet I could somehow understand it. "I am here to observe. Observe. I repeated, bewildered. What do you want? The creature moved closer and I could see intricate patterns on its skin that seemed to pulse with light, almost like bioluminescence. It raised one of its long fingers, gesturing toward the sky. I followed its gaze and noticed a constellation I had never seen before, twinkling brightly among the stars. It was mesmerizing and I felt a sudden sense of connection to it, as if the universe was trying to communicate with me through this alien being. But then the moment took a darker turn. As I stood there, captivated, I noticed that the atmosphere around us began to change. The air felt thick and heavy, and the once calming sounds of the night faded into an eerie silence. My dog, usually calm and collected, started to whimper and tug at my leg, clearly sensing something was off. "Leave now," the creature's voice echoed in my mind, but this time it was laced with an urgency that sent chills down my spine. "Danger approaches." Before I could react, the alien stepped back, its body shimmering as it began to fade into the shadows. Panic surged within me and I grabbed my dog, turning to run back toward the house. My heart was pounding in my chest and I felt a primal instinct to escape. Just as I reached the door, I glanced back over my shoulder. The glow had intensified, illuminating the trees around it, and I could see other shapes emerging from the darkness, more aliens, this time with darker, more menacing features. They were smaller but appeared more aggressive, their eyes glowing red in the night. I fumbled with the doorknob, adrenaline coursing through my veins as I finally managed to get inside. I slammed the door shut and locked it, my heart racing as I leaned against it, panting. I could still feel the alien's presence outside, lingering just beyond the threshold, watching me. I spent the rest of the night peeking through the curtains, terrified of what might happen next. I could see the occasional flicker of yellow light outside, but I never dared to open the door again. I don't know what their intentions were, but I felt a dark foreboding that something was very wrong. This morning, everything seemed normal and I tried to convince myself it was just a bad dream. But deep down I know what I saw. I can't shake the feeling that they're still out there. I'm still shaking from what happened last spring. It was around midnight. I let my dog out into the backyard for his usual late-night bathroom break. It was a clear night, the stars shimmered above and the air was cool and crisp. I stood on the porch, scrolling through my phone while my dog Max sniffed around the yard. He's a big, lovable golden retriever and normally he's fearless. But last night was different. As I glanced up, I noticed a strange light flickering near the edge of the woods that backs onto our property. At first I thought it was just my eyes playing tricks on me, but the light grew brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. I felt an odd chill run down my spine. Max, who had been happily sniffing the grass, suddenly froze, his ears perked up, and his body tensed as he stared into the darkness. "Hey buddy, what's wrong?" I called to him, but he didn't respond. He just stood there, fixated on the strange light, growling softly. I started to feel uneasy, a sense of dread creeping over me. I called for him to come back, but he wouldn't budge. Curiosity got the better of me and I stepped off the porch, moving toward the light. As I got closer, the light morphed into a sickly green hue that illuminated a figure standing just beyond the tree line. It was tall, maybe 8 feet, with a grotesque elongated head and skin that shimmered like oil. Its eyes were pitch black and large, unblinking, and they seemed to absorb all surrounding light. That's when my heart dropped. The alien turned its gaze toward me, and in that moment, I felt an overwhelming rush of terror. Max, who had been growling, suddenly barked and charged toward the creature, his protective instincts kicking in. "Max, no!" I shouted, but it was too late. In a flash, the alien moved, almost too fast for my eyes to follow. It reached out with spindly, claw-like fingers, and before I could react, it grabbed Max by the collar. I screamed as I watched in horror, frozen in place as the alien lifted my dog off the ground. Max struggled, barking and snapping, but the creature held him with an unfathomable strength. "Let him go!" I screamed, my voice breaking with panic. I fumbled for my phone, desperate to call for help, but I couldn't take my eyes off the nightmare unfolding before me. The alien's mouth opened wide, revealing rows of sharp needle-like teeth, and I could see a faint glow emanating from within. It was like something out of a horror movie, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Suddenly, the alien jerked its head back and I saw a flash of light shoot from its mouth, striking Max. My heart sank as I watched my dog go limp in the creature's grasp, his barks turning into painful whimpers. It was as if the light drained the life out of him, and I felt a surge of rage and helplessness. In a moment of sheer adrenaline, I charged at the alien, yelling and waving my arms, trying to distract it. "Get away from my dog!" I screamed, hoping to draw its attention away from Max. To my surprise, the alien turned its focus to me, releasing Max, who collapsed to the ground, whimpering. The creature's eyes glowed brighter as it took a step toward me, and I could feel an unsettling pulse of energy radiating from it. I didn't think. I bolted back toward the house, heart racing, praying I could get inside before it caught me. I slammed the door shut behind me and locked it, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I glanced out the window, my heart pounding, and saw the alien standing at the edge of the woods, its figure outlined against the eerie glow. It seemed to sense my fear, its eyes locking onto mine, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I spent the rest of the night clutching Max, who was shaken but alive, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I didn't sleep at all, terrified that the creature would return for us,